Hello class, we're about to start section 12.3, adding and subtracting rational expressions. Recall how to add and subtract numerical fractions. We have 5a's plus 1a. Remember, in order to add fractions, we must have the same denominator. That is with addition or subtraction. So, we will add these. We have to carry over the 8, and 5 plus 1 is 6. Now, we know we are not done because 6a's can be simplified. So, what we could do to simplify this, 6 and 8 both have 2 in common. So we could divide both by 2, and it would give us 3/4. So this is our final answer. Now, we know unless the directions tell you otherwise, you always simplify. You assume to simplify unless I or the directions tell you otherwise. Okay, now we come here to this next fraction. We have the same denominator, and we have addition. So we know we carry over the denominator, which would be x plus 3. Now, since we have this the numerator of this fraction plus the numerator of this fraction, we could just combine like terms. But before we do that, let's just write everything out. We had 3x minus 8 plus 15 minus x. Now we will combine the like terms. 3x minus x is 2x, and negative 8 plus 15 will give us a positive 7. And that's all over x plus 3. And that is the final answer. Now, we scroll down to this fraction here. Now, unlike the previous two fractions that we dealt with, we do not have common denominators here. We must find a common denominator. Typically, the easiest way to find a common denominator, well, I won't say easiest way, but typically the easiest, so you don't have to simplify at the end with larger numbers, is to find the least common denominator. Now, we could do this the traditional way. We have 6 and 4. We could think of it in our head like, what does 6 and 4 have in common? What is the value that 6 and 4 have in common? 12. So we will multiply this numerator and denominator by 2 to make this have a denominator of 12. And this numerator and denominator we'll multiply by 3 to make this denominator have 12. So we had 10 12s minus 9 12s. Now, we will subtract. We will carry over our denominator, and 10 minus 9 is 1. So that is 1/12. Are there any questions? Now, let me just say this. You can utilize your calculator to find a common denominator, and I am going to show you how to do that. So on your calculator, you will press Math, and then you will press the right arrow to NUM. And you will scroll down to where it says LCM. The least common multiple and least common denominator is basically the same thing. What we found here was the least common multiple for our denominators. LCD just telling you where the location is, but it's still the least common multiple. So now this is what we would do. You see number 8 is LCM. You would press 8. You have LCM, and you would type in the denominators and separate them by a comma. So you would press the number 6, and then the comma is above the number 7, and then you will press the number 4 and close your parenthesis and press enter. And it gave you 12. That will be your least common denominator. Now you may ask yourself, because we're dealing with smaller numbers here, it's easy to tell what we will multiply this 6 by and what we will multiply the 4 by. But this is what you would do. When you find the common denominator, what you would do is, of course, write the common denominator. But to find out what you would multiply this fraction by, you would just divide the LCM by the denominator. So you would take 12 divided by 6, and that will let you know that you will multiply this fraction by 2/2. And then you would take 12 and divide it by 4, and that will let you know you will multiply this fraction by 3/3. And then you will complete the process as we just did. Does everyone follow that? Okay. now we come over here to this next fraction. Okay, now if we look here at our denominators are the same here. So we know we could just carry over our denominator to be x squared minus 3x plus 10. Now for the numerator, we have subtraction. This first numerator will stay the same, 3x squared minus 2x. This second numerator, because it's a subtraction sign, you would change the sign of both of these numerators. So this positive 7x will become minus 7x. This minus 13 will become plus 13. Now we simplify this. We combine like terms. We will have 3x squared. Negative 2x minus 7x is a minus 9x. And then plus 13. And this is all over x squared minus 3x plus 10. Now, we cannot simplify this, so this will be our final answer. Now, we are going to get into problems that you actually can simplify, but it's just not the case here. So now we scroll down here. It says here, or to the next page, it says how to add and subtract algebraic functions. It says determine the LCD, compare the factor forms of the denominator. 2. Multiply each fraction by an appropriate form of 1 to create the LCD. Remember, your goal is to introduce missing factors. Add or subtract the numerators. Reduce if possible. Now, when they say multiply by the appropriate form of 1, just like we did in the previous problems with 2 over 2 and 3 over 3, that's what they mean by the appropriate form of 1. Now we look here. We have A. We have 2 over 5x cubed y plus 4 over 3x y squared. Okay, we have to find a common denominator. Now, first of all, let's look at the numbers before we get to the variables. What's the common denominator of 5 and 3? 15. So now, we know that 15 is going to be part of our new denominator. So we're going to take this step by step. Now we look here at the variables. The variables are actually easier to do than the numbers are. All you have to do is look at the variable with the highest exponent, and that will be part of your denominator. So with the x cubed and x, it'll be x cubed. The y and y squared, it'll be y squared. So your common denominator here will be 15x cubed y squared. Now, what we have to do is figure out what we will multiply this numerator and denominator by. So we know, first off, since this is 5 and we're trying to get to 15, we know we will multiply the numerator and denominator by 3. Now, one thing I didn't do is, let me get rid of this a. So now I got rid of the a, so we will have room to multiply. So we know we will multiply this numerator and denominator by 3. So now we have to look at the variable. Since this denominator has x cubed, we don't have to multiply the numerator and denominator by a value of x. But we look here at this y. We want y squared, right? In order to get y squared from just y, we will multiply the numerator and denominator by y. So we're multiplying the numerator and denominator by 3y for this first fraction. Now we look here at this second fraction. We look at the number for the denominator. We add 3. We know we have to multiply the numerator and denominator by 5. Now we look at this x here. We have x, but we want to get x cubed. So we'll multiply the numerator and denominator by x squared. And then since we have y squared here and y squared here, we don't have to multiply by a form of y. So now 3y times 2 is 6y. And we know multiplying 3y by 5x cubed y will give us 15x cubed y squared. Now we go over here, 4 times 5x squared will give us 20x squared. And when we multiply 5x squared by 3xy squared, that will give us our 15x cubed y squared. Now we can combine the like terms. We will have 20x squared, because we typically try and write it in order, plus 6y. All over, we will have 15x cubed y squared. Now, if we look here, well, actually, we could factor out here, but we wouldn't be able to simplify. So this is our final answer. Okay, now, we look at this next problem. Now this time I'll make sure I have enough room here. Now if we look here at our denominators, we have x plus 4 and x minus 1. Technically, whenever you're dealing with a binomial and they have nothing in common, which means they have no factor in common, that means you would need to multiply the numerator and denominator by the missing binomial. Like this has x plus 4, you'll multiply this numerator and denominator by x minus 1. This has x minus 1, we'll multiply this numerator and denominator by x plus 4. Now, we will multiply x minus 1 times 5. That will give us 5x minus 5, because you would do the distributive property. And your denominator would be x minus 1 times x plus 4. Now, we could do this here. We could put our minus here. And then we could take 2 times x, which is 2x, and 2 times 4, which is 8. And that's all over x minus 1 times x plus 4. Okay, now, since we have the same denominator, we'll bring over the denominator, which is x minus 1 and x plus 4. And then we will write the numerators out. We have 5x minus 5. And since we have a subtraction sign here, it changes the sign of both of these. So this positive 2x becomes a minus 2x. This plus 8 becomes a minus 8. Now we will combine like terms. 5x minus 2x is 3x. And negative 5 minus 8 is a negative 13. And it's all over x minus 1 times x plus 4. And there's nothing more we can do with this. So that is the final answer. Are there any questions? Yes.
Did you multiply out the 5?
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Would you consider it wrong?
No, it wouldn't be wrong. All right. So now we go here to B. Now these problems here are similar to what we've just covered. They're just a little bit more complex. So we look here first. We notice we do not have a common denominator. So first of all, before we do any multiplying, let's factor these denominators first. So we would have 4 over. We could factor out an x here, and we add x minus 2. Plus, this would be 1 over. Now, x squared minus 5x plus 6 will give us x minus 3 and also x minus 2. Now, we've done factoring before, so that's why I didn't go through the whole process again. Okay, now, here's the thing. We look at these denominators, and we look at what each is missing. We have an x and an x minus 2. We notice in the other denominator, we have an x minus 2. So we're missing an x minus 3. So we have multiplied this numerator and denominator by x minus 3. Now over here, now if we look here, we got an x minus 3. Well, let's put x minus 3 in parentheses to make that a little better here. Okay, so now we got an x minus 3, we have an x, and we have x minus 2. Now we got x minus 3, x minus 2, so we're missing the x. So we multiply the numerator and denominator by x. So in our numerator, let's do this before we do, well, let's multiply. So we have 4x minus 12, and then plus this numerator over here would be x. Now our denominator would be x times x minus 3 times x minus 2. And that is for both. Now we combine like terms here. So we will end up adding 4x plus x is 5x. And we have minus 12.